Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your boy Clint, rolling with ya. MMA Punch already in the chat. Hype! What's up, buddy? How you doing? Thank you very much for jumping on and enjoying the show. And you are correct. Waiting for the announcements for the 30th. I am looking forward to it. This is a weird week. We have had back-to-back MMA action, 3 events in 10 days, and your boy's exhausted. I've been working my ass off through this thing, doing podcasts and live streams left and right with some potential new sponsors. Exciting things are going on for the Die Hard MMA podcast. I appreciate you all and all of your support. But I'm not going to lie, I am very much looking forward to having a week of downtime. I need to go ahead and get cracking, get studying for the 30th event. We've already got a couple of fights that have been announced, so not a full fleshed out card. We're not entirely ready to go yet, but I am ready to rock on some of these fights coming up here. So first things first, we have a ton of new subscribers. Unfortunately, I can't name you all one by one anymore. It is a good problem to have because YouTube does not notify me of every single subscriber that jumps on. Since we started this thing in 2020, just after the break, we've got like 80 new subscribers to the podcast. So I know there are some of you who have been wanting that shout out. In every episode I do it, you don't hear your name on the podcast. I'm sorry, YouTube sucks, and for whatever reason, they're not sending me the link of those names. Chris Hames, what up, dog? Thank you for jumping in. Cole, my guy. I have to give a special shout out to my boy Cole. We were rocking on the fights, live chatting on Twitter and stuff like that. It was a good time. I do have to give a special shout out to my guy Michael Lunday. Thank you again, my friend, so much. Constantly supporting the podcast. It means the absolute world to me. I am a one-man show, and I work my ass off for you guys, so any tips and donations are always appreciated. You'll find that information down in the link below. So today, we are talking about UFC Jacksonville Fight Night 172 and 171. We're going to recap both events because, like I said, we don't have a fight card to preview this week, so there's no point in wasting a bunch of time going on about fights that are coming up and stuff like that. We still have the COVID situation going on for the weekend of the 30th. We don't even know where the fights are taking place yet. Dana White has already said that he wants to do them in the Apex. However, they might not happen in the Apex because Nevada may not allow MMA just yet, in which case they might be coming to your boy's backyard. They might be coming over to Arizona, and that would be kind of cool, except I can't attend the fights anyway because of the lockdown. So who knows what's going to go on? We're going to have to play the next week by ear. We'll study for what we've got. We're just going to have to wait for a couple more fight announcements on the other stuff and take it from there. Don't forget to go check out our boys over at goatcapitalsports.com. They've been crushing it with the UFC being back, doing quite well so far from what I've seen. That's GOAT, goatcapitalsports.com. They have a Twitter as well, goat capital_. You'll be able to find them over there. They are sponsoring the podcast and helping us out over here. We greatly appreciate them. They are awesome. Check them out. Tell them Clint sent you, especially now that the other major sports are getting rolling. They will be able to help you out on all the non-MMA topics that I don't know jack shit about. So y'all ready for this? I'm going to get a little fancy on you here. We have a idea. So we're going to go back to UFC Fight Night 171, and we're just going to recap the whole dang thing. UFC Jacksonville, and I'm going to try my dangdest to... Oh, I disappeared. There we go. Woo! New background, live on the show. Not even testing it beforehand. I'm just rocking it right here with you guys on the show. Dangerous, I know, but I like to live dangerously. So kicking off the night, we had Chase Sherman taking on Isaac Villanueva, and this is one that I told you all to stay clear the freak away from. If you absolutely had to bet anybody, take Chase Sherman. He's the guy that had the UFC experience. He's the guy that had, he's the bigger dude. The other guy's not even the right weight class. He's taking a short notice fight, just stepping up to get that UFC call. Sure enough, Chase looked improved. he looked pretty good, but he got bopped up. The dude got absolutely bombed on by Isaac for a little while, and I honestly thought we were going to see an upset. I know a lot of people who cashed in on Chase Sherman, so if you were one of those, congratulations. More power to you. Good job rolling the dice. My boy Rockstar Z, shout out to him. He put out a Twitter poll not too long ago, and he said something to the effect of, would you rather bet on a bad fighter in a good spot or a good fighter in a bad spot, something along those lines. And I can't exactly remember what he put on there, but the correct answer is it depends on the spot, right? So this is a spot where Chase Sherman is a terrible fighter. He is not a good fighter, but this was the spot to bet on him. I know a lot of people made some free cash on that one. Basically, he ends up getting the TKO in round 2, which was fun to watch, but don't you worry. We will be fading Chase Sherman the next time he steps into the cage. Fight number 2. The biggest disappointment on the card for me, because your boy had a 2 times play on Hunter Azure. I got him at minus 165, which I am super, super happy to have gotten in at that number because money flooded in on Hunter Azure. And you know what? There's my boy Cole in the chat again. Hunter ruined my night early. Me too, buddy. Congrats, Chris, for cashing in on the Vanilla Gorilla. At least you made some of that money on him. So, yeah, I mean, Hunter basically shit the bed. It was rough. I had a 3.3 unit play on him to win 2. And the worst part was when I first started taping this fight, Brian Kelleher jumped out right at me. Brian Kelleher was a guy that I cashed on in his previous fight against Ode Osborne, and I was like, I'm going to go right back to the well. He's a plus 145 dog. I know the skill set he's got. He's hungry. He's trying to prove himself a top contender again. I think he could show up here. And then I watched the tape and went, oh, shit, Azure's going to be a problem for this guy. But Azure didn't use the grappling. You know, it really sucks. Both of these events, it's almost the same exact story. I've got a fighter that I bet on that I very much was highly confident in, and they didn't play to their strengths, and it cost me. It cost them and it cost me. But this was the first one. Hunter Azure buried me in a hole on Wednesday that I had a very difficult time crawling out of just because he wanted to box with Kelleher. And, you know, Kelleher coming up 10 pounds late notice, it seemed to really work for the guy. He was fast, he was crisp, he was clean, and then Azure started to kind of gas out a little bit in the second round. It wasn't awful. We got to wonder how much of that had to do with the training camp. There's going to be a lot of questions like that right now where these guys are not getting full concrete training camps like they normally would. So you can't really blame the guy for maybe not being perfectly on point with his gas tank, but Brian sure as hell was, and he landed that big bomb in round 2, finishing inside the distance, and just impressive. So impressive for Brian Kelleher. Unfortunately, we may have missed our next best opportunity there to bet him as a dog, because I don't know what's going to happen with Kelleher in his next couple of fights, because he's headed right back up for the top of the division, and I don't know if he can hang with the top of the division, but he's proved us wrong so far. I mean, his last 2 fights, he's been a decent-sized dog, and he cashed on both of them. So, like I said, that put us in an early hole, minus 3.3 units, unfortunately, and this fight really became the mush. You hear that terminology when you're talking about sports betting. Everybody and their mom all on the same play. They call that a mush. You know, that's the one that ends up failing and everybody was wrong. I got in early, so I thought I was sharp, and I beat that big old line move, but apparently I wasn't sharp enough to avoid the mush. MMA Punch, Cheeto Variant, and Angela Hill for me. We will get there, my friend. We will get there. So the next fight on the card, Gabriel Mowgli Benitez taking on Omar Morales. This is one. Omar wins a relatively convincing 3-round decision. I had kind of the same exact read with Omar as I did on Hunter Azure, and I was far more confident in Hunter Azure. So ironically enough, of course, Omar is the one that actually cashes and gets it done, right? So I was looking at this a couple of different ways. I was thinking about parlaying Azure with Omar, which that would have busted. I was thinking about playing them both straight, but I was like, that's a lot of units. I'm just going to play the guy that I'm most confident in out of the 2 of them. I mean, honestly, I really thought more of Mowgli's striking than I did of Brian Kelleher's striking in their individual matchups. So, you know, missed opportunity, unfortunately. Again, I know some people that cashed in on Omar. He was solid. He was a good spot. So congratulations, you know, if you got in on Omar. That was another good one. He ground out. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. There's the key. He did exactly what he was supposed to do. Sajar Eubanks, Sarah Morass, what are you going to do? let's not waste a lot of time talking about this one. I told you guys on the initial podcast, let's not waste time talking about this one. It went exactly the way we thought it was going to. Sarah looked sharp early. She looked good. Eubanks took over. She was the bigger, stronger grappler. Moraes couldn't get that crazy sub from her guard, so it didn't happen, and Eubanks won a relatively easy decision, but it wasn't without Sarah showing up and looking like she had a couple of opportunities there. So sorry if you took the swing on Sarah, but yeah, Sarge, can't trust her. Not even in a parlay. Can't do it because she's just way too big of a favorite, and she's a perennial bed shitter. And let's see here. Cole, you're right, buddy. Florida judges were less than favorable on all three cards. Yes, absolutely. They were less than favorable. That's a nice way of putting it. And nice timing, my guy. Michael Johnson versus Thiago Moises. This was beautiful. I should have queued this up. I've got the background running with like the fights and stuff like that this week for you guys. Absolutely should have hunted down this tweet of mine. So Michael Johnson comes out like an absolute wrecking ball. He is putting it on Thiago Moises. Just a clinical first round. He absolutely steps on this guy. And I was like, wow, Johnson looks so good. Why didn't I pull the trigger? And I'm sitting there between rounds and I'm just going like, I'm like kicking myself. I'm like, damn it. I told everybody the read was Michael Johnson. The play was Michael Johnson. And then I was like, oh yeah, but you can't trust him. So I tweet right before the round starts, right before round 2 starts. I'm like, Michael Johnson looks phenomenal. How's he going to screw this up? 20 seconds, folks. 24 seconds into round 2. Thiago Moises takes him down and taps him out. That's why you don't bet Michael Johnson. I like the guy. His skills are phenomenal. When he is on point, he's an incredible fighter, but he finds ways to lose. He just absolutely finds ways to lose. This is one of those fights where I am going to give myself a pat on the back. And if you followed me, you deserve a pat on the back as well, my friends. If you passed on Thiago Moises versus Michael Johnson, you made the right call. People who cashed in on Thiago Moises, congratulations, high five, make that money. But the way Michael Johnson looked in round 1, that might have been a wrong side winner. I'm not confident enough to say that for sure because maybe Thiago Moises wins that fight 9 out of 10 times, but the way Michael Johnson looked in round 1, I'm honestly surprised Thiago Moises' chin held up. I thought Johnson was going to knock him out. So that's one of those fights, extremely coin flippy. One guy dominant in one area, one guy dominant in the other area. And in those kinds of cases, I am so happy with a pass because you're just flipping a coin. You're paying minus 110. You're laying that juice with your bookie to flip a coin, and you've got a 50-50 shot at the outcome. Didn't like that spot whatsoever and very extremely happy I passed. If Johnson had gone on to beat Moises' ass for the next 2 rounds, then I would have been upset at myself. But the fact that he shit the bed exactly like I said he was going to, honestly, kind of makes me feel good. I don't want to shit on fighters. I respect every single UFC and MMA fighter that has the balls to step in those cage. If you've been with me for a while, you know that. But, for the new viewers and listeners, I love UFC fighters and respect them. If I talk disparagingly about anybody, it's mostly comedy purposes for the podcast. But Michael Johnson is not a guy you should be putting your money on. Let's see here. Maniac. Let's see. I'm running an Instagram MMA page and I'm what you would call a casual. That's okay. We all started as casuals. There's nothing wrong as beginning as a casual. We all did eventually. Just got to Fight Pass and I wanted to, and because I want to become a more hardcore. Nice. Boom. You're in the right place. Any tips on how I can gain knowledge and more of a hardcore? Thanks. Mostly Maniac. First off, thank you very much for tuning into the show. Thank you very much for the question. The biggest thing you can do to become a hardcore is we watch all the fights. Every single one of us that calls ourselves a diehard or a hardcore fan, we just watch every single UFC card that comes out. Me personally, I'm digging into stats and information. I'm on the UFC stats page constantly. I am on bestfightodds.com watching the line moves do this leading up to the fights. It all depends on what you're looking for. If you're a sports bettor, there's a ton of really awesome sports betting podcasts out there for MMA coverage, myself included. You can just really dig waist deep into this thing, man. Watch all the fights, get familiar with the fighters. That's the best way to do it. And if you've got UFC Fight Pass, just dig in. You've got hours upon hours of content, great, phenomenal fights. Actually, check out @RockstarZ. Rockstar Z on Twitter, my boy Z's MMA. He did a tweet, I think, 2 weeks ago, and he is listing fights that are must-see fights. So if you have got Fight Pass and you really want to dig in and get some, familiar with older fighters or fantastic fights, go check that out. Yeah, there you go. Watched all three live at 3 a.m. You are already a hardcore. If you're staying up until 3 a.m. to watch these fights, you're already a hardcore. All right, my bull by Cole showing up again here. He was a casual. Yep, staying up for 3 a.m. Wow, I'm damn happy I live in the States because I'm a diehard MMA fan, obviously, hence the name of the show. But I don't think you'd catch me at 3 a.m. I'd be taping these things and watching them the next morning, first thing. So on to the next fight, Andrei Arlovski versus Philip Lins. Oh, y'all, my head hurts on this one. My head hurts on this one. Andre did the damn thing. On the podcast, I told everybody, Andrei Arlovski's freaking live here. I did a roundtable for odds.com with my boys Mo Scream, Boston Nick MMA, and Jimmy the Bag. And I told them, Andrei Arlovski is live here. And everyone laughed at me. Everyone was like, he's old. Philip Lins, this dude just came. Oh, I'm using the wrong hand. Philip Lins, this dude just came in here from the PFL. He won the $1 million. He's hyped up. He can hit hard. He's younger. He's faster. No, he's not that good. He's simply not that good. Andrei Arlovski is a monster, and somehow he keeps on kicking the ass of Father Time. I don't know how he does it, but he's always live in these situations. And if you've got a mid or lower tier heavyweight like Philip Lins, Andre's going to beat him. That's just how it is. And he was getting dog money, man. I missed out on plus 160, and I'm so pissed off because I called it all week. I hope you watching this show, I hope you listened to me in this case, and I hope you cashed on it because I didn't, and I should have. That was my very first regret situation on this card. I can't even say that I regret Hunter Azure because you've always got to trust your gut, right? So I had a read on the fight. I thought Azure was going to win. Really, maybe the biggest upset of the evening was Boom Kelleher coming through with that big-ass knockout. So, I mean, it happens. We're talking MMA. I tell you all the time, you cannot underestimate human beings. When they shut that cage door, they're going to fight to the death. And Kelleher, he wanted it more. So good on him. And underdogs cash constantly in MMA because of that. So we got caught there, but geez, we should have got it back on Andrei Arlovski. And I'm a little upset at myself for not taking that shot. It's funny. The last 3 events, the first 2 should have been massive nights for me. As far as the Die Hard MMA podcast record goes, should have been absolutely gloriously huge nights. But I didn't quite trust myself. There were a couple of spots that I held back on that I should have taken the stabs at. Well, I'm like, hey, learn your lesson, right? So trust yourself. On the 3rd event, I fired way too much. I trusted myself a little too much on the last event, and it got me. Chris Hyams, welcome to the show. Cast huge on Dober and Big Ben Parlay. I love hearing that. So I'm bummed that I missed out on the Dober spot. I honestly probably just should have passed Alex Hernandez. We know the holes in his game at this point, and Dober looked awesome. He looked absolutely incredible. But Alex had his moments in that fight, too. It wasn't just a one-sided beatdown. But Daddy, Big Ben Daddy came through for us. I love hearing that you parlayed it and cashed it. That's fantastic. Can't find the guys on Twitter that you recommended. So at Rockstar, he should just be at Rockstar Z, I want to say. Let me go ahead and pull my Twitter machine up here and make sure I give you the exact handle. Yes, at Rockstar Z. I'll go ahead and type it in here for you. Make life nice and easy. That's what I do. I'm for the people. I'm here for you folks. And you know what? While I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and stick Goat Capital Sports in the chat. They have got some ad space rolling here on the show, and I appreciate them very, very much. And then I'm also going to go ahead and take this opportunity to mention odds.com. If y'all haven't noticed, I have been writing more and more articles lately again. Thank God, after the whole SBR situation fell apart for me. Odds.com came out of the woodwork, and they are awesome and far better. So check out odds.com. They have been hiring me to do lots of articles and things like that, all MMA related. And there's a potential, cross your fingers, we're in discussions. They may even end up sponsoring the podcast. So it would go a long way for me. If you like the podcast, if you want to support me as a person, do me a favor. When this comes out to YouTube live right now, it's not there. You can go ahead and hit odds.com. I just put it in the chat. Head on over there. I've got a bunch of articles. Please read through those. You may hear some of the things I've already said on the podcast, but those numbers, those clicks, that's the most important thing for me right now. And the more support I get from you guys, the more I'll be able to do in the future. I'll be able to create more content. Maybe they'll sponsor the show, which means more good stuff coming to you your way. Once the show is over, if you missed the live stream, if you're listening to this later, it'll be in the link below. I'm going to add a couple of my articles to the description box here. Please just click those links, check them out. Your boy would appreciate it. Thank you very much. Without you guys, there wouldn't be a Die Hard MMA podcast, so I appreciate you. The next fight, Ricky Simón versus Ray Borg. Dodged a bullet. This is one where I did my roundtable with my boys Kelton and Bro Picks, and everybody was on Ray Borg. Even looking at it myself, I agreed that if it was going to be dog or pass, Ricky Simón, bigger, stronger, very similar wrestling base. Everyone's saying that he's going to be able to shut down Ray Borg, but Ray came out there with some serious fast hands. We have not seen his striking in a long time, and he really brought it to bear here. The only problem is he got a little overextended. He was striking so much with Ricky that he kind of forgot how to defend a takedown. So I'm really happy we passed here. Ray put up a damn good fight, but Ricky Simón was able to just shut him down everywhere. I think we did an awesome job of not risking and losing money in that situation. I don't want to stand in front of Ray Borg. He's a special talent in my opinion. I really think the kid's got a bright future, but this was a bad matchup for him, and moving up a weight class, not a good spot. So a really solid pass for us. Now here comes a little bit of a rough patch in the evening. So we start off the night losing our 2 times play on Azure. Yikes. And I'm thinking we're going to get it back here, right? I'm thinking Alexander Hernandez is a plus 100 dog. I believe in this kid. I think he's made some big changes. He's been off for a year. I'm expecting to see Hernandez 2.0. But unfortunately, what we saw was Drew Dober 2.0. Alexander Hernandez came out good. He came out guns blazing, and he looked really damn good. He was landing the body kicks. He was circling well. He got Dober's respect with the power. It wasn't like he was just completely outclassed on the feet. But it looks like Drew Dober has really tailed Justin Gaethje and made the same types of improvements. He's looking championship material right now, man. He took everything that Alex had to offer and came back that much tougher, that much harder, started landing bombs on him, and it became apparent that in round 2, deep into the fight, Drew Dober just had way more pop on his punches. And I got to wonder if it's maybe an accuracy thing. He was landing on the button. He just kept hitting Hernandez in the right spot, exactly at the right time, on the end of his punches. Really crisp, beautiful technique. And it was adding up. Hernandez was starting to get rocked by basically every shot. And Dober, he didn't even go in for the kill. He showed excellent hesitation when he needed to. He just kept hurting him, kept hurting him, kept hurting him. And that's how finishes materialize. When you don't dive on them and gas yourself out trying to take them out and bury them the second you've got them hurt, take a step back, let them shake it off, do it again. That's how you knock these guys out. Dober did a beautiful job of that. He ended up getting a round 2 TKO, and I liked my spot on Alex Hernandez. I've been a believer of this kid. I don't want to sit in front of you and lie and say, I shouldn't have made that bet. I liked that bet. I really did. Congratulations if you cashed on Dober. The thing that I'm really upset at myself for is passing on the under 2.5. I said it all week. I was staring at the line. You were getting plus money. I think it was plus 150 on the under 2.5. With these two guys, how did I not pull the trigger? I apologize. I should have given you that as a, oh, geez, dogs. Sorry. If you heard that, I apologize. How did I not pull the trigger on the under 2.5? These guys are absolute machines, both of them capable of finishing. Alexander Hernandez by submission and knockout. Dober, a knockout artist and machine. And we know that both of them were susceptible to gassing out, and they gave us a 2.5. A 2.5, not a 1.5. How did I miss that? I could have been free rolling this fight, man. A plus 100 dog bet on Hernandez and then a plus 150 dog bet on the under 2.5 and just called it a day. So that's my bad. That's one that, and unfortunately, this mistake lost me money in the next event because I remembered this mistake and I didn't want to make it again. So we'll get there. Sit tight with me. We're still recapping UFC 171. For those of you just joining the show, I know we got a couple more viewers. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. Daddy, the next fight was Big Ben Rothwell, baby. My dad stepping into the cage against Vince St. Preux. I had plus 130 on Big Ben Rothwell, and I loved this spot. Everyone called me crazy. It's just like the last spot we were talking about with Andrei Arlovsky. Big Ben was the perfect guy to beat OSP. You've got two big lumbering dudes, and yeah, OSP did not look out of place at heavyweight, but Ben has just a slightly better output than OSP does, and OSP doesn't have the best gas tank management. We talked about it all week. Yo, what's up, Dave? Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining the chat. And yeah, Cole, OSP looked absolutely terrified, and I'm honestly surprised he didn't get knocked out. Some of the bombs that Big Ben landed on him were pretty damn big. I mean, I got to give OSP some props. I spent a lot of time last week talking crap about OSP. I said that he doesn't have a good gas tank. He's been knocked out before. He doesn't have fight IQ. I mean, I said a lot of bad things about OSP. He is not a fighter that I in any way intend to bet on. I think he's a perfect fade, especially in spots like this when you're getting a dog price. He's got a chin. He's got a damn chin on him. I mean, Big Ben hit him with some serious shots. He would step back, he would flurry, and he was connecting right on the chin with some of these flurries multiple times. So a guy that's used to fighting 205ers is fighting a heavyweight, and he's getting lit up by some seriously fast hands with Big Ben. And he just took it. I mean, I'm incredibly impressed. This was the first spot, though, where my eyes really were open to how bad the judging has been in Florida, because somebody scored this fight for OSP. And that's simply unacceptable. So OSP got massively outworked by my dad, Big Ben Rothwell. Look at this. Total strikes, 86 to 46. Significant strikes, 56 to 42. So now, I know OSP was having a higher accuracy with his significant strikes. He did land significantly. I guess more of the strikes he threw were significant, but he still got outlanded by Ben. And Ben got a takedown. OSP did not. Ben controlled him up against the cage. OSP was running the entire time. OSP landed one shot that caused Ben to slip at the end of the second round. And some judge thought that was enough for him to win it. No idea. No clue. And as soon as the end of round 3 came around, OSP went nuts. He realized, oh shit, I've done nothing this entire time. The only way for me to win this fight is to knock this dude out. And I've got about 10 seconds to do it. So he goes ham, right? He clips Ben, and I'm sitting there like that. I'm like, oh God, because I thought he was going to get him. OSP, he's very athletic. He's not the greatest fighter, but he's got a ton of skills. He's got a ton of power. He's very explosive. So if he ever, very much like Big Ben, gets that, I guess I got to kill this guy attitude, he can do some damage. So he charges Big Ben, clips him, and drops him. And I'm sitting there like, oh no. So my boy Ben gets dropped at the end of round 2 and at the end of round 3. Now, he's dominating both of those rounds for 95% of it. But you know judges are awful. So somebody scored this fight for OSP simply based on the fact that he knocked Big Ben down twice. And I could have lost this bet just because of the fact that we were in Florida. Thankfully, that did not happen. Thankfully, that did not happen, and we were able to go ahead and pull this one out. Big Daddy held up for me. And now I'm fighting with the UFC website because for some reason it took me to OSP's page instead of exiting out of this fight like I wanted it to. We're live, folks. We're doing it live. So we get a little bit back there. And now the only way that we can even get close to calling this thing a day is by cashing in on our last bet. The last bet for the night I had was over 2.5 rounds at plus 105. 2 times. I put 2 units on this one. Absolutely loved this pick. and everyone was calling me crazy. Anthony Smith is going to kill Glover Teixeira. He's going to knock him out in the first round. It's going to be over quick. How could you bet the over? I mean, this is another one that, so I put out a tweet a little bit later that I was like, you know what? Sometimes the hardest bets to make are the best ones. I want that to sink in here for a minute. So if you're following me for betting content, I'm not a professional sports bettor. I'm going to give you my action. I'm going to tell you what I think is a good bet, and I'm going to cross my fingers I make you some money. I'm hoping to win some money, but I'm basically an MMA fan. I watch every single event. I've done some training myself. I've got some basic level knowledge of the sport, and I bet for fun. I'm not charging you for my information. I'm going to give you everything I know, and if you want to go with me, good luck to us. I'm going to hope I win you some cash. This is one of those situations where I had to take this bet. Over 2.5, when you've got a guy like Glover, who's incredibly durable, incredibly savvy, and then a guy like Anthony Smith, who never gets finished. He only ever finishes his opponent and was able to go the full distance with monsters in his last couple of fights up at 205. I'm like, you've got two incredibly durable guys, and you're telling me that I'm getting plus money for this thing to go over? Not to mention the fact that it's a 5-round fight, meaning that these guys are more than likely going to conserve those gas tanks. They're not going to go nuts in round one because they know they could potentially go 25 minutes. So I'm like, I have to make this bet. It's too good for me to pass on it. So I zacked up and I put 2 units on this one. And thankfully that saved our night. This could have been a winning night for me very, very easily. If I had taken the under 2.5 with the same logic that I just used on Hernandez and Dober, that's a casher, and we get another half unit or so. If I'd take Andrei Arlovsky, like I told everybody, the old man is live. If I'd taken Andrei Arlovsky, we cash another plus 160, and then we've got a positive night. And then maybe the biggest mistake that I made all night. I selected the over 2.5, nailed it, and I told everybody all week that Glover Teixeira was going to win this fight. And then I didn't pull the trigger. I was too chicken shit to pull the trigger. So right at fight time, he's been a plus 160, plus 150 underdog basically the entire week. And I loved him there. On the podcast, on the roundtable, I told everybody if he gets up to plus 175, plus 180, it's a mandatory bet. It's just too wide of a line. There's too much value on Glover Teixeira at that mark. I will be pulling the trigger. After losing my first 2-unit bet on Hunter Azure and losing my bet on Alexander Hernandez, I kind of forgot about the fact that I said that, unfortunately. So I'm sitting there staring at it, and I didn't even comprehend that Glover had hit plus 200 right before the fight kicked off. And that's me being a casual bettor and not a professional, unfortunately. I'm hanging out with family. I'm 8 shots of Fireball deep at this point. Your boy's wasted, losing a game of darts to my father-in-law. And I forget all about locking in this bet at plus 200. So could have absolutely smashed Smith versus Teixeira as a fight night if I had just bet everything I said that I should have bet. The fight goes exactly the way I planned it. No, I'm kidding. No, geez, who saw that fight going that way? So I thought it was going to go over, right? But what the hell happened? So Anthony Smith comes out looking Anthony Smith 2.0. Dude has leveled up. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. His sharp striking is crisp. It's accurate. It's fast. And he's just putting it on Glover. There's my boy Z. Passing is worse than a loss. And that is exactly what I'm living by these days. Passing feels so much worse than a loss. I'd rather lose the money. And that's what I did the last event. I lost the money because the bet didn't cash. I would rather lose the money and take the shot than not take the bet. What's up, Z? Thank you for stepping in here and saying that. What's up, Nick? Thanks for joining me. Boston Nick is one of the guys that joins me on the UFC roundtables for odds.com. That's my boy. Give those guys both a follow over on Twitter. They're awesome. So what was I saying? Anthony Smith, Glover Teixeira. Anthony looks awesome. He comes out and he is bopping up Glover Teixeira, and everybody basically is prematurely celebrating the fact that Anthony Smith is just going to sacrifice Glover Teixeira inside the octagon this night. Well, Glover pulls up one of the most veteran savvy moves I think I've ever seen. And this is why I love betting on old dogs. All right. If you find a couple of old underdogs that have been around forever, they're still durable, they still hit hard, just like Arlovsky and Glover, keep them in the back of your pocket because they are money trains, folks. He needs Anthony Smith to slow down. Glover's in there getting boxed up. And he's like, I know I can wait this guy out. I know I can wait this guy out. That's what he's done in his last 3 fights in a row, is wait for these young guns to gas themselves out trying to finish him. But Smith ain't slowing down. He's like, damn, dude, I got to catch my breath. So what does he do? Uppercut straight to the dick. And I'm not kidding. It's a low blow. You go back, you rewind that tape, and bink, he goes so low, you know it wasn't an accident. Somebody who's as clean and as crisp as Glover Teixeira, you do not miss a punch to the gut. Plus, have you seen how tall Anthony Smith is? You know how long his abdominal section is? There's no way he missed that. He punches Anthony Smith in the dick just to slow him down a little bit. Poor Anthony Smith needs like the entire 5 minutes to recover. The whole time Glover's over there going, catching his breath. And that was it. That was the entire fight right there, because Smith was never the same after that. Glover caught a second wind and Anthony Smith never got back on track. Glover started having some success, started returning fire, and Smith had blown his wad early. So he just didn't have it anymore at that point. And I'm sitting there doing this thing. And then we get to round 3. Your boy needs 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I've got the over 2.5. And Glover starts mauling Anthony Smith. I'm like, Glover, baby, slow down. I'm like literally like standing up in front of the TV and I'm going 10, 9, 8. Because he's like working on a choke and like pounding the guy. I'm like, this referee's going to stop it. I'm like, he's going to cost me this 2-unit bet by like 4 seconds. Thank God Glover decided to take a deep breath and apologize to Anthony Smith for the beating that he was giving him. This thing ends up going all the way to round 5. That moment at the beginning of round 3, we could have been cooked. The referee could have stepped in at any minute to stop that fight and killed our 2-unit play. But thank God they both held on. The over cashes. And I love that. So full recap for UFC Jacksonville, UFC Fight Night 171. We end up going minus 0.9 units. So that's not so bad. Anytime you have a losing night, if it's less than a unit, there's really nothing to cry about, right? Like that's the dream. If you have a losing night, to lose less than a unit feels really good. But I had this just sick pit in my stomach because I should have crushed this thing for like 5 units. And yeah, anyway, I hope I gave some good information to some people. I hope some of you out there made some cash with my breakdowns because, yeah, it could have been a phenomenal night. Nick, you are right, buddy. Plus 190 was ridiculous. I mean, in round 1, it looked like Glover was going to sleep, but that chin is still intact, baby. If you give me plus 190 on Glover against any of these mid-tier 205ers, I'm going to take it every time. What's up, Zane? Welcome to the show. We don't have full fight card announcements for the next event just yet, unfortunately. Hopefully in the next week or so, we'll get a totally filled out card. Yeah, Smith losing teeth, that was nuts. So I know they're fake teeth. I know they're veneers, but the video of him literally like finding his teeth on the mat and handing them to the referee, I'm sorry, that was hilarious. And yep, the old veterans, baby, they're sneaky. And people just give up on him. People leave him out to dry. And I've been telling people forever, the myth that Andrei Arlovsky has no chin, it's been debunked. I don't know how people keep saying the guy's chinny. Unless he fights a massive power puncher and not a mid-tier power puncher, but a big-tier power puncher, Andre ain't going nowhere. Let's see here. How do you see Woods versus Burns going? Let's chat about that a little bit at the end. I want to get through UFC Fight Night 172. We'll fire through that one a little bit quicker than this one so we can wrap the show up, and we'll talk about that at the end. We can take a look at what we know for the next card, and then we will chat about it. Dave, welcome to the show. Anybody's thoughts on Garbrandt doing against the Sun Tzu? So one of my biggest rules when it comes to betting MMA is you've got to be damn careful. Simply do not bet on somebody with no chin. And I think Garbrandt's chin has been toast for a long, long time. A Sun Tzu can pop, but Garbrandt is such a slick boxer. I'm still thinking on that one. I got to do a little bit more research. but if memory serves correctly, I don't want to be betting on Garbrandt. I'll tell you that much. I know they're trying to get him a layup. They're trying to get him a get-right fight, and that might end up being what this is, but I don't know if I want to pull the trigger on that anyway. Yep, that's right, Nick. Daddy came through, old Big Ben Rothwell. I love it. All right, so let's move right on, shall we? We wrapped up UFC 171, and now we're on to UFC Fight Night 172. We are minus 0.9 units on that, and looking to get it back and make some cash on UFC Fight Night 172 on Saturday. I had a good feeling, had a real good feeling about Fight Night 172. And then it all went to crap. So we kicked this night off with the big boys. Nascimento coming to the UFC, taking on Don'Tale Mayes. This is one that I may have missed the boat on. So Don'Tale Mayes is a guy that he's just damn durable, dude. He's not great. He's got a good chin, and he hits hard. But we didn't know shit about Nascimento. I know a lot of people made some money on Nascimento. A bunch of people gave him out as a plus 100 underdog, that kind of thing. And I just wasn't there yet. I really wanted to see him in action. I know Mayes makes mistakes. I know he throws flying knees and stuff like that. And if he ends up on bottom, he's basically useless. But I wasn't sure he was going to do that. I thought maybe his fight IQ had improved. He'd be able to keep this fight standing, in which case I thought Nascimento would have a problem. Nascimento looked good on the feet. Nascimento looks damn good on the ground. This was a great spot. And if you bet Nascimento, congratulations. Got the sub in round 2. Yeah, Nick missed the boat here, but, what are you going to do? Can't win them all, right? Courtney Casey versus Mara Romero Borella. This is one that I steered clear and clean away from. Oh, boy, Z had the under 1.5 in Mayes, and Nascimento cleared it by 25. Oh, no, you lost it by 25 seconds. Oh, dude. Did you lose that? No, that cashed. It finished at 2 minutes and 7 seconds in the second round, right? Tell me you cashed. I'm watching the live shit in the live chat here. Tell me I'm reading that right. You cashed it, right? I hope you cashed that. Okay, thank you. Woo! All right, my boy Z won the fight. Beautiful. That's, you know what? And another thing, I shout out Z so regularly. You would think he sponsored this show. Z is one of the guys who put out YouTube content that got me inspired to do my MMA podcast. I love this guy. He's sharp as hell. He knows his stuff. He makes good content as well. And he does these violence bets. And I'm really starting to kind of get my feet wet on the violence bets as well, because he's hitting them at such a high rate. Spots like the Dober and Hernandez spot at UFC 171, I was staring at it. I'm just not comfortable and confident enough to pull the trigger every single time, but they cash so often. So all credit to Z MMA for the violence bets. We're going to make those things awesome. And so back to Courtney Casey, Romero Borella. Her last name is so hard to say, that double last name. It does not roll off the tongue easy. Complete stay away. I wanted nothing to do with this fight. Courtney Casey comes out looking like an absolute monster. I mean, she was the favorite here, but she's a literal 500 fighter. I'm not touching Courtney Casey, but Mara's a piece of crap as well. So I know I'm being a little bit degradatory here. I do apologize, but neither of these women have I have no interest whatsoever in betting either of them. I know a lot of people cashed on Courtney Casey. They said it was easy and it looked easy. So congratulations if you got on that one, but not for me, folks. So here's one. This is where things get interesting. UFC Fight Night 172 was incredibly interesting for a lot of reasons. So I have a bet on Landwehr Elkins under 2.5 at plus 160. This is the bet that I had to play. Because I missed out on Hernandez and Dober, I didn't want to have another under that I felt like was just waiting to be had and miss it. So I go ahead and I pull the trigger, under 2.5. I get a nice juicy line, plus 160. Landwehr opens up the biggest cut on Darren Elkins in round 1. I mean, we're talking BJ Penn levels of blood here. Darren Elkins is just dripping. Nate Landwehr's getting it in his mouth every time they painted that canvas. I hope somebody buys the canvas from UFC 172 because it is absolutely splattered. And somehow the referee doesn't stop it. I mean, these guys were going at it. Elkins was landing some big bombs. Landwehr kept getting up and coming after him and returning fire, some big shots. I have no clue how these guys stayed standing. I mean, maybe Darren Elkins has lost some pop on his punches. Maybe Nate's doctors got the formula just right. Now he's back on his meds for this one. I don't know. But I feel like I probably should have cashed that under 2.5. At any rate, at plus 160, I felt like I had value there, especially when you have that cut. There's a potential doctor stoppage that can end it. I'm not bent out of shape losing that one. Like we said before, I would much rather take the shot and miss it than not take the shot at all. Let's see here. Maniac, is there any apps that will let you bet like 50-cent fights or something? Thinking about putting $2 in the account and seeing if I can make a load of money. You will be grinding your ass off if you start with $2 there, buddy. You might want to do a little bit more than that, but I'm not sure. Honestly, each site has their own limits, so you'd have to kind of check them out. Shoot me a message over on Twitter, I guess. DM me, MMA Maniac. I can try and help you out there, buddy. Cole says, my nephew could land an open hand on Elkins and he'd bleed. It's so true. It is so true. Mo absolutely nailed that because he's got all that scar tissue in his face and all the battles and wars he's been in. Boston Nick, Casher plus 110 on Nate. And yeah, nice dog hit on the dog. I mean, the only problem here is that I couldn't pull the trigger on Nate. This is another spot where I wanted to do Nate and the under, just like I wanted to do Alexander Hernandez and the under, but I didn't trust Nate. And honestly, I feel like I didn't trust Nate for good reason. Let's take a look at these numbers. So it turns out Darren Elkins won this fight, folks. This was the first opportunity that the judges had to screw this night up. Now, this one wasn't egregious. It wasn't so bad because let's face it, if two guys are standing toe-to-toe and they're fighting to the death and one guy can't see because he is just flooded with blood, he literally can't see out of his own eyes, you're going to probably lean with the other guy, right? Z, my boy. Thank you, my friend. Yes, sir. Loving this green screen. I think Darren Elkins won this fight. I mean, I would have to give round one to Landwehr based on the damage that he did, based on the cut, stuff like that. But I think rounds 2 and 3 went to Elkins. The only problem is these judges, all they could see was the blood. The shots that Elkins landed as opposed to what Landwehr landed didn't matter as much as the blood that was streaming down his face. So this is another spot where I'm actually really happy that I passed on. You won't hear a lot of gamblers say this, and that's why you come to the Die Hard MMA podcast. Your boy will always be open and honest with you. I could have bet Nate Landwehr. I would have got him as a dog, and I would have cashed plus 110 on that dog. I'm glad I didn't make that money because, in my opinion, that would have been a bad bet. That would have been a wrong side winner because Darren Elkins, in my opinion, clearly won this fight. Yes, the blood makes it a little bit interesting, but if you take that blood away, if you wipe that scar off, he doesn't have that cut in this fight, I think it's pretty clear that Darren Elkins won the fight. So another very coin flippy fight. I'm very happy to have just had the under in this spot rather than taking a side on it. It's unfortunate that I didn't get the win, but I think I had a very good position. So it flipped me to the main card naturally. I got to head back over the prelims here. Sorry if the background's tripping you out there. Giga Chikadze taking on Erwin Rivera. Not going to waste my time on this one, boys and girls. Erwin, short notice replacement, and somehow Giga still wasn't able to put him away. I think Giga's a fade. I mean, I know this was a weird situation for everybody to be in. I really was looking forward to fading him in this fight. My parlay initially was a 3-leg parlay, and Giga's original opponent was the anchor of that parlay, or I guess the first leg of that parlay. But I really think he would have just been mauled, absolutely mauled. And I'm looking forward to Giga's next opponent because I probably will bet against him there. His striking is fantastic, but he's just not evolving as a well-rounded mixed martial artist. That's how I feel about Reem. Kind of regret not betting him, but at the same time, cause for, yeah, exactly, Z. Exactly. We will get there. Main event, we will get there. Wasn't a robbery. You can make a case for either fighter to win. No robbery. Exactly. People throw around the term robbery in MMA, and no, I mean, this one wasn't a robbery. Darren Elkins and Nate Landwehr was definitely not a robbery. And you know what? Real quickly here, so we're not confusing people, if you're listening to the audio-only version, your boy Clint goes live now. So I'm answering chat questions as we're going through this. So if you're listening on YouTube or whatever, and I sound like I'm jumping around and losing my train of thought a lot, it's because I'm addressing the chat on this show these days. And you're missing out. You should come hang out on YouTube. Subscribe, hit the like button, follow me, turn the notifications on. That way, when I do go live and you want to come chat and hang out with me, you never miss it. So moving on, Anthony Hernandez versus Kevin Holland. Oh, baby. This is another one. So the regret hits your boy hard on this one because all week I said Kevin Holland is the play. And I was like, I know that everyone and their mother is on Fluffy, but this line ain't moving. It's a pick 'em. No matter what comes in on Hernandez, you never got better than like plus 105, plus 110 on Kevin Holland. And I'm like, the physical advantages. He's longer, he's taller. Like, he reminds me of Adesanya and John Jones as far as his body structure goes. And I think that can just take you so far. There are people that you will beat that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise been able to defeat just because you've got these physical cheat codes. And I really should have bet Kevin Holland. Trying not to be results oriented, he blasted Fluffy. I mean, this was a 1-round, 40-second KO. I can't believe he came out that hard. Honestly, I was this close to locking in a bet on Kevin Holland, and I noticed that he was dropping weight classes. I put out a tweet. That's what kept me off of it. The only reason I didn't bet Holland was because he's dropping from 185 to 170. He came in like 3 pounds underweight, and that's because he's actively moving his body size down the scale so he can be ready for his 170 debut. And I just don't want – I thought Fluffy was going to be too big. You know, I believed in the skills. I believed in the physical attributes, everything about Holland. But if you come in underweight and you're not even going to balloon back up after the weigh-ins and your opponent does, you're at a significant disadvantage. So I ended up holding off, and that's a pass that hurt just a little bit, and it cost me. My boy Cole over here cashing on Holland. Happy to hear that, buddy. It was a good spot. And here we go. Look at this. Z making unders great again. Looking for the under 2.5 plus 165. Yep. If Warrior Bet got that one, that would have been beautiful. I mean, and that's one, honestly, I didn't even consider. I did not consider the under on this one because Holland can be extremely durable and he can be grapple heavy and low IQ sometimes. He goes to decisions a lot. This wasn't one that I was interested in the under 2.5 on, but yeah, if Warrior Bet got that one, that's a really sharp, good spot for it. So anyway, that was definitely a regrettable spot for me, unfortunately. Now, here we go. This is a fun one. We've got a little bit to talk about on this one. My 3-leg parlay, losing a leg, has now become a just better than even money 2-man parlay. One half of that was Miguel Beza at minus 200. He's taking on Matt Brown. Now, you know I love my old savvy veterans. I've talked about that constantly, right? But what's one of the big keys that I talk about when you bet a dog or an old savvy veteran is they've got to have durability. That's so important because that fight IQ, that veteran savvy, that can take over in a fight if they can stay in the fight. Matt Brown is not a guy that can stay in the fight. He's incredible. He's got great timing, great skills, hits hard as hell, but he can't take a punch anymore. He's too broken down. And honestly, I love hearing that he's going to come back because that means we get to fade him again. Now, from a human standpoint, I want the guy to hang it up. He's done. He's got nothing left to prove. He's got no reason more to fight. But if you're going to come back and fight again, I'm going to make some money off of it. So my boy Miguel Beza comes out, and he gets woke up quick. Matt Brown hits him with some serious shots, made him see the light. And then Beza took over. Beza started doing exactly what we were talking about. Dude's got crisp hands. He's got hard leg kicks. And he just started wearing on Matt Brown. And then right at the beginning of round 2, that was it. I don't like seeing these old dogs get beat down like that, but it was nice to cash the first leg of my parlay. And honestly, looking back on it, so much money came in on Matt Brown. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. He went from being like a plus 180 underdog all the way down to damn near even money. And I couldn't see it. I was like, what are you people looking at? Like, what sharp found out that Miguel Beza has diarrhea the night of the fight and tweeted all of his buddies? Because somebody knows something here. And when Beza got down to minus 140, I went, dude, hammer it. Hammer it. And I just couldn't do it. I was kind of scared shitless by that line movement. I have no problem standing in front of the world. If I'm the only guy betting Glover Teixeira, no problem. I stick with my gut. I stick with my reads, and I will play what I'm supposed to play. But when literally the entire planet is flooding one guy in a fight, you start going, who got paid off? Like, what do you know that I don't know? And I just couldn't do it. I wanted to do another 2 units on Beza straight at minus 135, I think, minus 140. And I just couldn't do it. Damn, I kind of wish that I had. The only thing is, with the way round 1 went, Brown could have finished. So people that took Brown can absolutely say that they got the value side of that. And that's something that originally I didn't think of. I kind of thought this was a foregone conclusion that Beza was going to knock Brown out. It did turn out that way, but it got hairy. In round 1, Matt Brown did some serious damage. He put the young kid on his skates. So, I mean, if you want to take the argument that Matt Brown was a live dog and at plus 180 rolling those dice was worth it, I guess I won't argue with you. Let's see. I'm going to come back in here. Pat, what's up, buddy? Holland shut everybody up. That is right. Easy casher. Love it. And yep, Nick, I do hope he comes back as well. Proposed a decision. Yikes. Yeah, we'll get there. We're almost there. Let's see here. Had song decision prop. Got lucky with that one. Yep. They don't know that shit. Clint, trust your gut. That's right, Z. And that's what I'm working on, man. I am working on trusting my gut far more often. I did it last weekend, and on Saturday, it kind of got me bit. It's unfortunate because when you trust your gut, you steer into the variance, and I lost a couple of bets that I felt like were good spots because I trusted my gut. So, yeah, Nick, I felt like Beza was the best bet on the card at minus 133. Exactly. Yes. You nailed it, buddy. You are absolutely right. But I already had him in a parlay. That's one of those spots where one thing I'm always scared of is compounding losses. So I've already got the guy. I've already got him tied into a parlay. Yes, he's incredible value at minus 135, at minus 140, and I want to put more money on him. But let's say Matt Brown lands that bomb in the first round, and now I've got 3.5 units on the guy. I don't want to compound losses that way. You know what I mean? I try to avoid that if I can, but if you were ever going to double down on somebody, I feel like this was the spot, and I did knowingly let it go by. What's up, Jamie? F the Florida judges. That is right. All right. And yeah, it was scary for a second, but Beza should have easily been minus 186. I parlayed him at minus 200. I thought I had value on him at minus 200. So yeah, when he dropped down below that, theoretically, I should have put more on him. Anyway, let's get to the main card. We're about an hour into the show, so thank you all for sticking with me. I hope you're enjoying the content. Again, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for me, and check out all of our sponsors. Song Yadong is taking on Marlon Chito Vera. And here we go. Those Florida judges. So the anchor of my parlay with Beza was Song. I had a 1-unit parlay at plus 128, and it came down to Song Yadong. And I will be honest with you all, watching this fight, I scored it for Chito. I absolutely scored myself losing this fight. I did not expect to get this victory. Now, looking back at the numbers, it's incredibly close. Something I mentioned on the roundtables, something that I mentioned on the podcasts is that these Florida judges, yes, they're bad, but you know what? If we can familiarize ourselves with some of these judges, you can notice the trends that they're looking for. And what I noticed from the first 2 events in Florida is they favor striking. I think most of these judges are boxing judges. Now, I don't know that for certain, but I believe that's why this has been happening. The grappling, the cage work, it just doesn't seem to matter to them. If you land a big shot, you won that round. End of story. There's little to no thought going into it for them. And while that's really bad, it's what they did. So I put Song in this spot. I liked him when he was a bigger favorite, but looking back on it, it was definitely a wide line because he should not have been that big of a favorite. Extremely close fight. Simply looking here at the numbers, 119 to 115, 101 to 92. You can't see the takedowns because my shoulders. But Chito got 2 takedowns, and the judges didn't care. Watching the fight, especially round 3, I'm going, Chito just locked this up. He put Song on his back. Song's gas tank problems are back. It's an issue, and it's going to cost me. And luckily, I got away with one. So if you had Marlon Vera, you absolutely had the right side. That dog money was phenomenal, and you should pat yourselves on the back because you had a legit bet there, and you should have won it. Andre, what's up? What's your thoughts on Woodley versus Burns? We will get there, my friend. As soon as we finish the recap, I will touch lightly on that fight, and then we'll have a podcast next week all about it. That's right, Pat. Very, very, very bad. Song was the winning bet. I hated winning at minus 200. Exactly, Cole. That's what we talk about all the time. You got to get value. And I had him in the parlay here. I had him around that minus 200 mark. I think he was 180, 85, 90, something in that. I can't remember exactly. It was in the parlay. And yeah, I did not like winning it at that kind of a favorite price at all because it was hairy. It was super close. I would much rather be rolling the dice with the dog in that situation. And Pat, I agree that Vera won 2 rounds easy. If you count the grappling, he absolutely won, which this is MMA. We should be counting the grappling, right? The next fight, this is the one that I shake my fist at. This is the one that bothers me. Eric, your boy Anders, taking on Krzysztof Jotko. What an embarrassing fight. Just an absolute blah. It was awful. Just awful. And remember what we talked about? I noticed that these judges favored striking. Krzysztof Jotko, while I love his tattoo, Vegeta is my favorite Dragon Ball Z character. His tattoo is sick. I like the guy as a guy. He ain't shit. He ain't shit. I'm saying it. I'm going to fade him his next time out. I do not think he's a good fighter, especially in the divisions that he can compete in. Don't think he's got it. I think he's going to get put to sleep relatively soon. He's not as good as he needs to be as a wrestler. He's going to be a gatekeeper. This guy's going to be a gatekeeper. He's never going to take that next step to get up a notch. And I thought that Eric would be able to punish him. Eric came out. He had like an interview leading up to the fight, basically that he wanted to, give Walt Harris something to chase. And I'm like, man, if you're getting somebody as strong, as fast, as athletic as Eric Anders coming out, piss and vinegar, ready to fire on somebody who has a bad chin, I'm like, the Florida judges are going to eat this shit up. You've got this big bruising monster that's going to walk forward, land big shots. Whether or not Jotko goes down, he's going to steal rounds. Loved it. I loved this spot. I made it a 2-unit play. I got Eric Anders at plus 135, and I hit it twice. Absolutely loved it. And I could not figure out why people were laying their money on Jotko. He wasn't going to be able to take Anders down. He wasn't going to be able to implement that wrestling. And without that wrestling, he wasn't going to be able to win the fight. Anders was the problem, not Jotko, because let's be real, Jotko didn't do shit in this fight. Anders was the problem. This guy comes out and decides he wants to grapple against the cage with Krzysztof Jotko and not throw. I don't know what that's about. You ain't winning fights like that. There is no place. I mean, so if you want to give him credit for the cage control, that's fine. But you've got to do something with it. If Eric Anders had just worked the body or landed some elbows on the break, I mean, he very easily could have scored more in the clinch and easily taken this fight. He's the harder hitter. Both these guys are limited. It was right there. And this is a spot where at the bottom line, what we're doing is gambling, folks. Like, you can say you've got an edge. You can say you know what you're talking about. You can charge people $100 for your picks. No disrespect to anybody that does, obviously. It's not my style, but I get it. People want to get paid for their knowledge and their hard work. Totally understand. But like, at the end of the day, we are gambling. We did not know that Eric Anders was going to come out and fight like he's never fought before in a worse way. We didn't know that he was going to come out and try and lay on Jotko for 15 minutes to get the judges to go, I think the guy on top wins. He couldn't get a takedown, and he had no ability to change his strategy once he got in there. It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand what went wrong. I don't know why he thought the way that he did, and that game plan made no sense against a guy like Jotko, who is always looking for the takedown. Why would you go in looking for the takedown on that guy instead when you're a striker and not a wrestler? Not in any way a wrestler. Never in the UFC have you wrestled. I'm sorry. This one has my blood boiling. Not because I made a bad bet, but because I bet on a bad fighter in a good spot, and he did what bad fighters do. I put Eric Anders in the trash bin a long time ago. I need a little digital trash bin that I can like throw shit into. Eric Anders goes in the trash bin for bad fight IQ. And this was just such a good spot that I had to go for it. And it cost me. And that's my bad. That is my bad. But if Eric Anders had shown up the way that Eric Anders normally shows up, I think he wins this fight easily and by a landslide. And yeah, Nick, I'm sorry, Jocko. I know he's your best friend. I know you grapple with him and hold mitts for him all the time. He's a nice dude. I like Jocko. I just don't think he's going to do very well moving forward, especially when he takes that next step up. Yep. Z figured he could catch him. He gassed bad, which, I mean, you got to wonder how much of that is COVID, how much of that is him just being a mid-tier fighter. Yeah, it was not good. Jocko apparently has a great clinch. I don't know why. Exactly. See, look, okay. The casual in the chat knows that Jocko is good in the clinch. Why would Eric Anders? Your boy's got a coach. He's got a head coach. He has someone who's going to think about these things and tell him the best strategy for taking on this fighter. And they play straight to the other guy's strength. Why would you go to the other guy's strength? Go to your strength. So stupid. Maniac, I love you, buddy. I'm not calling you a casual to be disparaging. You called yourself a casual. That's the only reason I said it. But yeah, anyway, that one pissed me off. So very similarly to the Azure fight, I find myself in a hole. We cashed the parlay, but it's only good for plus 128. And the 2 units on Anders puts us in a 2-unit hole. We missed the under 1.5 on Landwehr. I liked that bet. I'm good with that bet. No issues taking that shot, but it still chips us just a little bit further down into that hole. Nick, absolutely. Jocko's a gatekeeper now. He needs to be careful with those matchups because he absolutely is a gatekeeper. And if he gets the wrong gatekeeper fight, boy's going to get put to sleep again. So next fight, we've got Dan Ige taking on Edson Barboza. This is another really, really fun fight. And I had a bet locked in on Dan Ige. I'll be honest with you folks again. That's the one thing. There's a lot of people out there that are shady. Your boy's honest. I'm always going to tell you exactly what's going on. I scored this fight for Barboza. I thought this was a fight we should have lost. Now, looking at the numbers, looking at the stats, Dan Ige did outland Edson Barboza by a decent margin. However, Barboza hurt him at the end of round 2, and he hurt him at the end of round 3, and he dropped him both times. And it was one takedown against 13 punches, something. It's so close. This is a really, really close fight. Now, my boy Lock of the Night at LOTN, check him out on Twitter. He's another good one. I can't wait. I haven't listened to his show yet this week. He does an episode called Deciding Splits, where they go over all the close, hairy split decisions, and they try to make a case for both sides and see whether or not the judges were right. He's got like 3 opportunities from this last fight card to go do that, and I cannot wait to go listen to that and see what they had to say. Because live scoring, being drunk, 8 shots deep on Fireball, which, yes, I know I said that on the last one. I was drinking a little bit too much this week. Being 8 shots deep on Fireball, watching this fight, hanging out with the father-in-law, I absolutely scored this fight for Barboza. So if you had Barboza here, you kind of have my condolences. I can't say that I regret the bet whatsoever, though, because based on all the information I had, Ige training with Khabib, having that grappling edge, the tight boxing, I think that dog shot on Ige was warranted. I think it was valid. And especially when you've got the questions of, we don't know how Barboza is going to look in the new weight class. We don't know how he's going to look cutting all this weight. I had no problem taking that shot there. So this one was close. It was hairy. It was a little more coin flippy than I like to get. When I take a dog, I like to have value on the dog. And in hindsight, I don't know that there was. So this may have been a bet that was kind of a semi-bad bet. I'm glad I won it. The way the rest of the night was going, I needed the unit in this case. So I'm glad I got the win here, but I'm not entirely certain that I deserved it. So we'll leave that one in the tank there. I've made my admission. I'm going to move on to the fight that I am most passionate about on this entire card. Angela Hill won this fight, folks. Let that sink in. Angela freaking Overkill Hill won this fight. This was exactly like Glover Teixeira taking on Anthony Smith for me that I said all week. I pounded my chest and I screamed at the top of the mountain that Angela Overkill Hill was pure value at this line and was so wrongly priced. And I almost threw a second unit on her when all that money came in on Claudia, because closer to fight time, money poured in on Claudia Gadelha, and Angela Hill closed, yikes, I mean, like plus 215, plus 225, something insane like that. And I mean, look at these numbers. Look at these numbers behind my head. We got 93 to 92, and then 90 to 84. This fight was so razor thin close. And if you look at their faces, one thing that we have to consider in MMA is damage. Claudia was busted up. Angela Hill looked like she could do a photo shoot after this fight was over. There was nothing on her. No damage whatsoever. Claudia got her shit punched out, and she got dropped in round 2. The only question in this fight is round 3. Round 1 was clearly Claudia. Round 2 was clearly Hill. The question was round 3. And I think this thing breaks it down by rounds. Yep, here we go. You ready for this? I'm going to take a look at this. Round 3. Why is it not showing me? Oh, that's lame. Okay. Distance strikes. Round 3. What? Oh, she's in the way. What are you doing, UFC? That's terrible site design. Okay. Distance strikes. 43 to 33. Angela Hill outlanded Claudia by 10 significant strikes in the 3rd round. How do you score that for Claudia? She never landed a takedown. She tried to push her up against the fence, and Hill circled out every single time. Hill stopped the takedown, kept the fight standing. Hill is the one who determined where this fight took place. Hill won this fight very clearly. And I know my boy Nick in the chat is a Claudia homer, but I'm sorry, buddy. You're wrong. Rewatch it all you want. Round 3, there is no way that Claudia won round 3. Angela Hill landed the bigger, sharper shots, and she landed 10 more significant strikes than Claudia did. There was no grappling. There was no wrestling. There was no cage control. Strikes are the only thing that matters. Hill won that fight. And that's where this whole thing sucks. Because if Hill wins that fight, your boy ended up down minus 1.62 units, and I had Hill at plus 168. Would have had a razor-thin casher. Well, actually, in hindsight, we wouldn't have lost that 1 unit that we bet on Hill. So actually, I would have had a pretty damn good night. I would have been up at least a unit if this fight had gone appropriately. And this is the one that I'm really pissed off about as far as the judging goes, because obviously it was my biggest swing. But we have to be fair. If you circle back around, I may not have deserved the Song Yadong bet. I may not have deserved the Danny Ige bet. So it's okay that I lost the Angela Overkill Hill bet. I wanted that one the most, though, because cashing on big, sexy underdogs is kind of my thing. It's kind of my gimmick, you know? I take those dog shots that other people are too afraid to pull the trigger on. And if Hill had come through for me, it would have been just... I've been calling out dogs this entire week on all 3 of these cards, and it would have just been the moment of my week to call yet another one, and one of the biggest ones here on the card that had a reasonable chance of cashing. So I was a little bit upset over that one, but I'm really excited about Angie Hill. I hope that the UFC recognizes what she did in this fight, and I can't wait to fade Claudia again. I told you all week, Claudia is a straight fade right now. She is overpriced. She is over-favored by the public. Everyone puts money on her, and we're going to make cash going against her. I promise you, it's this close. It's going to happen. All right. Robert, what's up, my man? Let's make money this week. Next week. Fights are coming back on the 30th. We will do our best to make money next week. Alex, she did get robbed, my friend. That's correct. And if anything, she deserved a draw. Unfortunately, I didn't see a 10-8 round. You know, I agree with you. Like, I wish they could have just gone, fuck it, it's close, you get a draw. But that's not quite how scoring works in MMA. So, yeah, that would have been all right anyway. Barboza looks a little slow. He you know what? He still has his power. He just has to be a little more careful with the way he spends his energy. But I think he did a good job of monitoring it, honestly. He impressed me. I think Barboza's got a little bit of a future at 145, depending on his matchups. Barboza's good. Dude, I'm just scrolling through the comments here, folks. It was a night of lucky and unlucky bounces. Exactly, Z. And that's why, as much as I'm going to scream at everybody that Hill won that fight, I may have got lucky in a couple of spots, so I can't be pissed off that one of them went against me. You can't have all the goods break your way. I mean, I'm lucky to have a couple of them break my way because it feels like all the bad ones break your way. So I'll take it, and I'm not gonna bitch about it. And yes, you know what, though, Z? Depending on that price tag, buddy, because in the first Esparza fight, one of my big key points showing exactly why Claudia is shot is that Esparza dropped her. That was really the beginning of the decline for me, is that I went, oh shit. Like, if you're getting boxed up to the point that you're getting dropped by Carla freaking Esparza, who can't bust a grape, that's bad news. And Esparza's striking has been coming along. And if her wrestling is still on point and she can do the same thing that Angie did, where she keeps Claudia on the feet, Esparza may be the perfect opponent to fade Claudia Gadelha against. Abreu's about to whoop Hill on... What? Abreu about to whoop Hill in this upcoming card. Oh, Klitz and Abreu? Okay, haven't looked at that one, Dave. I'm going to have to go, Hill. Which Hill? I'm sorry, I'm on Angela Overkill Hill, so I'm like, Abreu better not be fighting Hill. That'd be some bad press for the UFC. I'm ready. Yep. It always feels bad. You are always hungry to come back and win if you end up getting robbed on a couple fights. I feel that. And then Claudia is shot and not a threat to any women above her. Gary, you couldn't say it better, buddy. She is no threat whatsoever. She's not a finisher anymore either. That's for damn sure. So let's get into this main event here real quick. All the emotion, all the story, the entire world being on Walt Harris, wanting him to win this fight. Overeem had other plans, folks. This is another one. I called Overeem to win this fight. I said all week, he's the better fighter. He's got more experience, and his chin is not shot. He's been knocked out by the two hardest hitters in heavyweight history. He's not shot. And if Walt Harris lands that big bomb, he can put him out, but that veteran savvy. And that's exactly what happened here. And you know what? I can try and take credit for having a beautiful call, but at the end of the day, I didn't have the balls to put the money on it. This is another one that felt way too dangerous for me. And I feel vindicated not actually betting my money on it, because Walt Harris destroyed Overeem in round one. Absolutely destroyed him for the first 2 minutes. And I'm floored that Overeem was able to dig deep and come back through that. I have no clue how he got out of that one. Z, my guy, I feel so bad for you. This is the one. This is why I thought you lost the other one. I was like, don't tell me he lost too, because losing this under 1.5 by 30 seconds is brutal. Overeem decided to kick back in his rocking chair and take his time there at the end of round two. And I think you absolutely should have cashed that under 1.5, whether it was for Overeem or whether it was for Walt Harris. Someone should have got the dang thing done just a hair faster. So I'm sorry, buddy. That is a rough spot. But Overeem gets the damn thing done. You could have cashed in as a nice juicy dog on this one. And that Hail Mary parlay that I always talk about, tying a couple dogs and stuff like that together, Angie is the only one that broke it for me. I could have had one of those long bomb in the end zone for fun parlays, but Angela going down broke it. So unfortunately, I did not hit that home run. But Alistair Overeem, he's my Glover Teixeira, man. He's another old, savvy veteran dude that we can just always rely on. It's that brain. You get that experience, that savvy, and as long as they're durable to take a couple of shots, they find a way back in the fight. They find their opponent's weakness, and they exploit it. And it's so good. I absolutely love it. It's the best. It's the best. Sorry, that's my Nacho Libre impression. Walt gassed himself trying to finish. Not a pro move. And you know what? That's exactly it. The emotion. That's something that we were talking about all week. The emotion. Walt Harris was so vulnerable and raw, and he wanted that win so badly for his daughter. And, I can't imagine. He's got his boy on the ropes. He's pounding his face in and he's going just 1 or 2 more shots and it's mine. And then he misses and he gives up the position and then Overeem's on top of you. And once Overeem is on top of you, what are you going to do? Like, oh, I feel so bad for Walt. And you know what? That's another reason that I actually didn't bet this fight is that my heart was cheering for Walt. My brain and all my analysis said that Overeem was the better fighter here and I should bet on him, especially as a dog. But I wanted Walt to win. For him, for his family, for his daughter. I wanted that moment. And this way I can at least be a little bit happy that if Walt had won, I didn't lose money. And I could celebrate with him. And this way I can tell you, you know what? I picked the right guy. Your boy's smart. I could have made money here. So I'm happy with the way that it ended. As far as me not pulling the trigger on it, it's another one that I wouldn't have felt good watching round 1 with a bet on Alistar Overeem. He got it done, but I would not have felt safe whatsoever. That is so rough about the Hail Mary. Yes. Yeah, man. It's one of those ones where like, I do this every time. I throw $5 on it and you just tie together all the ridiculous things that maybe will happen with the unders and dogs. And I could have won like $2,000 on my $5 bet and whiffed it with Angie getting robbed on that decision. So maybe that's why I'm so fired up about Angela Overkill Hill losing that fight. Overeem's such a legend, absolutely. And if he gets the right matchups, he can still make some money for us. He's got a couple of fights coming up. Heartbreaking watching that fight. Harris's mind was on his daughter, and that's what I was afraid of. Absolutely. And that's true. It was definitely adrenaline rush, emotion powered, and that's something that we run into with this kind of stuff, unfortunately. There's another level to handicapping mixed martial arts. And honestly, that's part of the reason why I love this sport. There's just a whole next level to it that you're, not able to get in some of the other sporting events around the world, I feel like. If your star pitcher is having a bad day, they bench the guy, and you've still got your number 1 roster for the rest of your baseball team, you're probably still going to win it by 3 runs. The stats matter far more than the emotion does. In MMA, the mindset, the emotion, the mentality matters so much. I love this game. So let's take a look at what we've got here. We're looking at UFC Fight Night 173, bestfightodds.com. That's my favorite place to go as far as seeing line moves and stuff like that. I love it. Cool little thing some people might not know. You click this little button here, and you actually get this cool little graph. I'm going to move my head out of the way. Other way. Check this out. You can actually see the moves on people betting the money. I love that. It's so cool that you can see at what point where anything was at. And no, Best Fight Odds is not sponsoring the show. So this is just me giving props where it belongs. So far, the fight announcements are Augusto Sakai taking on Blagoy, and then Hill versus Abreu, Cyphers versus Dern, Burns versus Woodley. I've done no tape study so far for this fight. So I'm going to give you my rapid fire, quick, early thoughts on this one, and I'm going to dig into it this week. I know a lot of people are betting Augusto Sakai. I like Augusto Sakai, but I'm 0 for 3 fading Blagoy Ivanov. The dude knows how to win fights. He's not overly impressive. He's got a good chin. He wades forward. He's slightly low output, but he makes the fight close every damn time. So be careful fading Blagoy Ivanov. I'm going to take lots of care when looking at that fight because the dude is hard to fade. Trust me, I've tried. Hill versus Abreu, very interested in that fight. Super interested in that fight. My gut says Hill, but it looks like money's coming in on Abreu. That line's been, look at this thing. That line has been, wrong way. That line's been ping-ponging around all over the place. So I'm going to be very interested to see what the tape tells me on that one. Cyphers versus Dern, squash match, folks. Absolute squash match. Dern, I should have got on it early. My boy Kelton at Kelton MMA, I think, on Twitter, he said as soon as this line drops that you need to hammer Dern, and boy, was he right. I think it opened at minus 170 or something like that. Now she's at minus 380. I don't like throwing those big chunky favorites in my parlays, but if I can find a 2 favorite parlay, the ones that I normally like to do like normal, she's probably going to end up being a third leg in it because this is a complete mismatch. And I think Dern just mauls Cyphers. Should be an easy roll through. Gilbert Burns, Tyron Woodley. This is where it's at, folks. I've been waiting for this fight ever since we caught wind that there was even a chance that Gilbert Burns versus Tyron Woodley was going to happen. I've been licking my chops. I can't wait for this one. I'm having a hard time because I've been a Tyron Woodley truther basically forever, but I'm concerned that the guy is checked out at this point. I'm concerned he's worried more about Hollywood, his rap career, all these other things, rather than fighting. And because of that, I just don't know quite where to put him. He was the greatest of all time at 170, and I was calling him that when Kamaru Usman beat him. It just, one of the things you see with these guys is when they hit that point of no return, one of the first signs that you see that they're faded is they can't pull the trigger. And that's exactly what Woodley has done in his last 2 fights. He found it the fight before the Woodley fight, but in the Woodley fight, I'm sorry, I keep saying Woodley, he's Woodley. In the Usman fight, he could not pull the trigger. And that is exactly what I'm afraid of. If Woodley is just that much faded, Gilbert Burns is going to wreck him. I've been on Gilbert Burns throughout this entire ride ever since he got up to 170. I've bet this guy. He's been a cashing machine for us. And the way he fights is phenomenal. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I know Woodley is too, but there's levels to this shit. And I think Gilbert Burns is a higher level black belt on the ground than Woodley is. Woodley does have the wrestling advantage, but he doesn't use it anymore. Woodley did go out to Tiger Muay Thai and he sharpened up his striking skills. Dude's got heat. Dude's got bombs. I think Gilbert has a speed advantage. And if Gilbert can put the ground and the speed advantage together and get Woodley on that back foot, and he's having trouble pulling the trigger, I'm leaning Burns, folks. This is very early. I need to go back and rewatch the tape. It's been a long time since Woodley has actually fought. So we've got a lot of stuff to go over and figure out with him. I really need to dig back into him. I was very, very sharp on Woodley back in the day when he was being more active. But now that he's not so active, I really kind of got to give myself a refresher course. But I feel like this fight gets ended by somebody. I think Burns either KOs Woodley or runs into something big because he's so damn aggressive. So maybe an under is the way to go in this one. Again, we're going to have to sit tight and wait. I've got a lot of research to do. I think I'm going to wrap it up at this point, everybody. Thank you so much for sticking with me. The podcast has been about an hour and a half. I appreciate you all hanging out, especially those of you who showed up on time and live in the chat to chill with me. I love doing this shit live. It's so much more fun doing it live. I've got to find a way to get my intro and outro videos and audio mixed into the show so I can still play those at the beginning and the end of the podcast, because that was kind of part of my brand and I really miss it, especially for like people rewatching it later. I feel like it looks way more professional when you've got that happening at the intro and outro. But I appreciate you all. Remember, I'm trying to land something big with odds.com. Do me a favor. Follow me on Twitter at DieHardMMAPod. Click the links below and do me a favor, read these articles, even if you're hearing some of the things that you have heard before. Real quick, I want to address my boy in Maniac. What sites do you use for research? 90% Fight Pass, man. I watch fights. That's really what I do. The other thing is the UFC stat page. Here we go. Right there. Boom. UFC stats. You can sort by fighter. You can search by a fighter's name. You can see their overall career stats in the UFC. You can break it down by fight. This is my favorite web page for searching fighters and their stats. So there you go, my friend. Good luck. Good hunting. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me at the Die Hard MMA podcast. Without you, there would be no show. If you like what I do and you want to support me, like I said, click these articles, give them a link. I've got my information down below if you want to send me a tip. If you made some money based on the reads I sent you, always appreciate it. I'm a one-man show here. And yeah, honestly, love you guys. Keep rocking. And next week, we will be back. We will be live on Tuesday to break down the 30th card. I can't wait. Can't wait. So, oh, you know what? Last thing before I sign off, I almost forgot. The total record for me, the 3 events in 10 days, I am plus 0.04 units. Ha! So even though I took the shots at the end of the week, even though I lost 2 units on Anders and rolled those dice, your boy's positive. It's barely, but I'll freaking take it. Love you all. Good luck. If you're betting on anything the rest of this week, I hope you cash it. Let's roll.